Good day, viewers. Today we'll have our biology revision series where we'll cover different aspects of biology and prepare ourselves for external examination. So let's get started. BCG vaccines are used in the prevention of a disease caused by BCG vaccines are used in the prevention of a disease caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Remember, Mycobacterium tuberculosis causes tuberculosis, and tuberculosis can be prevented using the BCG vaccines. Lockjaw is caused by a pathogen called Clostridium tetani. Remember, lockjaw is tetanus, so it is caused by Clostridium tetani. Which of the following exist as colonial and filamentous organisms respectively? Volvox and Spirogyra. Remember, Volvox is a colonial organism, while Spirogyra exists in the form of filaments. They exist as filaments. The ability of a microscope to distinguish two very close objects as being separated from each other is its solution. Which of the following is an anabolic process? Glycolysis, deamination, photosynthesis, glycogenolysis. The answer is photosynthesis. Remember, anabolism is the build-up of larger molecules from smaller molecules. In photosynthesis, you are manufacturing food. Green plants are manufacturing food. But these other processes, they are catabolic process because they involve the breakdown of larger molecules into simpler or smaller molecules. The light stage of photosynthesis takes place in the thylakoid. The directional movement of motile organisms towards or away from stimuli is termed taxis. So in taxism, the whole organism is moving, not part of the organism like tropism. Whether it's phototaxis, response to light, hydrotaxis, water, chemotaxis, chemical, rheotaxis, current, any of them, the whole organism is moving towards or away from that particular source of stimuli. Closing of the leaflets of the flamboyant tree due to low light intensity is an example of nastic movement. The type of sugar in RNA, type of sugar in ribonucleic acid is, of course, ribose. From the name ribonucleic acid, you know, it's talking about ribose sugar. Which of the following is not a bone in the hind limb of mammals? Answer is ulna. Remember, the humerus, ulna, and radius, they are found in the forelimbs of mammals. The following secretions of the digestive system are alkaline except gastric juice. Remember, gastric juice is found in the stomach, and the stomach contains hydrochloric acid. So the stomach is acidic, so gastric juice is an acidic medium. But intestinal juice, saliva, and bile, all of them have an alkaline pH, so it's in alkaline medium. The structure in the digestive system, which plays a similar role to the alveoli of the respiratory system, is you have villi, epiglottis, esophagus, gallbladder. The answer is villi, because the villi is where absorption of food takes place, richly supplied with blood capillaries. The alveoli is where gaseous exchange takes place, richly supplied with capillaries. The major cause of acid rain are sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide. They are major air pollutants, so they cause acid rain. The loudness of sound is measured in decibels. The massive growth of algae as a result of the washing of nitrates and phosphates into water bodies is termed eutrophication. Algal bloom occurs as a result of fertilizers, pesticides, chemicals washing into water bodies. So there's an excess growth of algae. So the answer is eutrophication. Which of the following helps us to test the degree of water pollution in ponds and lakes? Biochemical oxygen demand. Biochemical oxygen demand. Which of the following zones of a marine habitat will have the least light intensity? Littoral zone, intertidal zone, benthic zone, and the splash zone. Of course, our answer is benthic zone. Remember, the light intensity decreases as you move from the top of the ocean to the bottom. The splash zone, the intertidal zone, the littoral zone, then the benthic zone before the abyssal and hadal zone. So now, of the ones given here, the benthic zone will have the least light intensity. The splash zone will have the highest or the most light intensity. So the answer here is benthic zone. Which of the following is not an estuarine habitat? Which of the following is not an estuarine habitat? The answer is oceans, of course. Bays, lagoons, deltas, they are all estuarine habitat. Oceans are marine habitat. Which of the following parts of the female reproductive system is concerned with tubal ligation? Which of the following parts of the female reproductive system is concerned with tubal ligation? The answer is the fallopian tubes, the oviduct. Tubal ligation, where the tubes are tied to prevent the woman getting pregnant. It's a method of birth control. So the answer is the oviduct. The following are benefits of family planning, except it increases unwanted pregnancy. No, rather it actually reduces it. So family planning helps to reduce the incidence of unwanted pregnancy. Ovules are attached to the placenta of a flower by short stalks called funicle. The outermost wall of a flower are the sepals. The calyx, the sepals, is the outermost wall of the flower. The following factors help to check population growth, except diseases, food shortage, predation. All of this will help to ensure that the population growth is not increasing. However, immigration in a way explodes population growth. So the answer is immigration. Ultrafiltration occurs in a part labeled. Now, this is the course of the urinary tubule that we are given here. So where does ultrafiltration takes place? Here it takes place in the part labeled B, and that is the Bowman's capsule. That's where ultrafiltration takes place. The diagram illustrated is the structure of what? I just mentioned it, that is the course of the urinary tubule, which of course is the nephron, the structural and functional unit of the kidney, and this is what the nephron looks like. The parts labeled C, D, and F comprises the renal tubule. So C, D, F, the proximal convoluted tubule, the loop of Henle, and the distal convoluted tubule, all of them makes up what is known as the renal tubule. Now the part labeled D is, this is D. The part labeled D, I just mentioned it. D is the loop of Henle. The broad band of fibers that connect the lateral cerebellar hemispheres is pons varolai. The pons varolai. The organisms A and B respectively belongs to what class of arthropods? You have a cockroach here, and you have a spider here. So the cockroach belongs to insecta. They are insects, they belong to insecta, while the spider, they are arachnids, so belong to arachnida. Calculate the total number of tilapia in a pond. If the first capture was 400, second capture was 250, and the number of marked tilapia the second capture was 50. Okay, now this is simple here. This is the capture recapture method in population studies, where we are going to use this formula A1 times A2 over A3. Now there are different ways these formulas can be represented, but this is a very simplified way of calculating it. A1 is the number of individuals caught and marked in the first sample, the first time we went to that particular site. A2 is the number of individuals caught in the second sample, while A3 is the number of marked individuals from those recaptured the second time. So by the time you calculate it, 400 is the first capture, 250 the second capture, then 50 is the number of marked ones. You will notice that you have 2,000 tilapia in that particular area. The diagram is part of the particular skeleton. Remember, the diagram you can see here, you have the part of the hind limbs of humans, and of course it's part of the appendicular skeleton. The part labeled 3 is part 3 is the kneecap, the patella. This is the part labeled 3 here, is the patella. The type of joint located between the parts labeled 1 and 2, that's between the type of joint found here is ball and socket joint, similar to the one found in this shoulder joint. So this hip joint, you have a ball and socket joint here. The femur is the part labeled, this one is very simple, most of us know the femur is bone in the body, and it's this part labeled 2. Now this is the digestive system of man. The parotid gland will be found around the region labeled, remember the parotid gland found here, the parotid sublingual, submandibular glands. They are all part of the salivary glands, so it is found there. Which of the following enzymes is produced in the part labeled G? What's the part labeled G? This is the part labeled G, and this is the stomach. So which enzyme is produced in the stomach here? Pepsin. So pepsin and renin, they are produced in the stomach. Bile is produced in the part labeled C. Remember, bile is produced in the liver. There's the liver and stored in the gallbladder. So bile is produced in the liver. So C is the answer. The part labeled H, that's this. That looks like a leaf here. Part labeled H is pancreas. Pancreas. We still have more questions on this digestive system. The muscular movement of food in the part labeled B. This is the part labeled B, that's the esophagus. So the muscular movement of food in this part is by peristalsis. So absorption of food takes place in the part labeled, where does absorption of food takes place here? Food takes place in the part labeled E. E here is your small intestine. We mentioned it earlier. The type of metamorphosis illustrated is, you have egg, nymph, adult, egg, nymph, adult. This metamorphosis is incomplete or hemimetaboly, so it's an incomplete metamorphosis. This type of metamorphosis is also observed in the following insects except. Now this is for grasshoppers. So which other insects in addition to grasshopper carry out this incomplete metamorphosis? All of them carry incomplete. Butterflies carry out complete metamorphosis. Which part of the ear equalizes air pressure on either side of the eardrum? Eustachian tube does that. What pattern of evolution is illustrated by the diagram? You have an elephant and a mammoth coming from a common ancestor. This is simple. It's divergent evolution because they come from a common ancestor. Which of the following organisms is a well documented example of industrial melanism? Because the peppered moths, Biston betularia, is a well documented example of industrial melanism, which is an example of microevolution. In the mutated gene for hemoglobin, one of the base codes in the DNA that should read as glutamic acid has changed to read as that's what called. Remember, a mutation is a change in the DNA structure. So here you have glutamic acid replaced by valine. Visible expression of characters of an organism resulting from the interaction between its gene and the environment is its the phenotype is the observable sum of observable features of an organism. During gamete formation, the way one pair of alleles for a given character distributes itself in the gamete does not affect the way other allelic pairs distribute themselves. This is the law of independent assortment of genes. ABO blood discovery system. Simple question here. It was Carl Landsteiner discovered it. Now, a case of genetic drift led to the total removal of blood groups A and B from a population. If out of the remaining 300 people, 240 are universal donors, what is the percentage of people with blood group O? it's a very simple calculation. The A and B's have been removed, so you are left with blood group O and blood group AB. Blood group O is known as the universal donor, AB is the universal recipient, but our focus here is on blood group O, and there are 240 persons. So if you calculate the percentage of blood group O over the total number of people there, which is 300, you have 80% of the person, so they have the higher percentage. The remaining 60 of them will be blood group AB. The remaining 60 of them, which is 20%, will be blood group AB. So you learned a lot. We'll continue in the series in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.